Today we're making a video on making healthy yogurt. It comes from an article in Women's World with Dr. William Davis, 100% healthy with Miracle Yogurt. And we're going to be making our yogurt today with a Suteck Yogurt Maker that you can get on Amazon, and we'll provide a link to that below. One of the first things when making yogurt is you don't want any metal to touch any of the products you're using to make the yogurt or the yogurt itself. So you want to use wood or plastic when you're mixing, crushing, those types of things, or glass. And so we have a glass mixing bowl, a glass measuring cup, some wood and plastic utensils for mixing and crushing, and then we have a mortar and pestle that we'll be using to grind up a probiotic called BioGaia, and we'll provide a link below for that as well. We're going to be also using Inulin, which is a prebiotic, and you can get that on Amazon as well. The coconut milk that we're going to be using today is AROY-D, and we're using this because you don't have to add any thickener when you use this because it's 100% coconut and water. And so we're going to be just using the cream portion of this coconut milk, and then we're going to be taking the watery portion, putting in the glass jar, and saving that for smoothies at a later point. We're making 8 jars, about half to 3/4 full of yogurt, and so we used 4 cans of AROY-D, and we only used the cream out of those cans, as you'll see in the video, 10 tablets of BioGaia, and that we crushed up in, that you'll see in this pestle and mortar, and then 2 tablespoons of Inulin prebiotic fiber. We're disinfecting the jars for the Suteck Yogurt Maker, and so we filled the jars halfway with water, and then we microwaved them for 3 minutes. And so I'm going to use these tongs to get them out because they're still hot, and then just going to dump them in something else and then put them in the Suteck with the tongs. And that way I'm not introducing any other contaminants, bacteria, or anything, trying to minimize that. This is kind of like a surgical room in a sense, bit of a science experiment. You want to make sure you're not introducing any contaminants of any types, and so clean your hands well, use a nail brush, make sure everything's as clean as possible so that you can create the best yogurt possible. Okay, the next step in the process is to separate the cream from the water in the AROY-D coconut milk, and so we're going to make sure the tops are clean, again trying to keep things as sanitized as possible. And then what we found, we've already done a few cans, what we found is that just pouring the cream out through the open can until we see some water starting to come out is really the best way of doing it. So we just pour until it starts getting runny like that. Then you can see it's mostly water now, so then we're going to pour that in the glass jar here, and then put the remainder, the actual cream portion, in the mixing bowl. So we've already mixed up several of the BioGaia, which is in pill form, so you can see we've already mixed up quite a bit of it there. We're going to do one more in the mortar and pestle, and so we're going to grind that up in here and then pour it in to get it all ground up and put it in. And then go on to the Inulin. So we need 2 tablespoons of Inulin, which is fiber, prebiotic pure powder fiber for intestinal support. And so we need 2 tablespoons of the Inulin. And it has a hard time coming out of there. They made that mouth just a little small for my tablespoon. And I'll just give that a mixing up as well with our spoon. The next step is we're going to be mixing in some of the remainder of the cream from our measuring cup along with the BioGaia and the Inulin to make a gravy-like slurry. If you ever made gravy, this is pretty much the same thing. So we're going to pour in a little bit of the cream, and then we're going to mix that in with the whisk and try and create a slurry-like substance. So it looks like we're going to need a little more cream. So just like when you make gravy, it's a bit of a put it in and mix it up until you get to the right consistency. And then we're going to be pouring it in to the mixing bowl. Okay, so quite a bit of mixing on the Inulin and the BioGaia with a little bit of the cream to make sure that you don't have any lumps, or very minimal in lumps, because this is your food for your good bacteria, and you're going to be mixing it into this much larger bowl over here, and you don't want any lumps going into this bowl. So we've got this all mixed in, and we're pouring it in, and then we'll mix it into the bowl. Okay, so we've got all of our slurry now into the bowl. And it's a lot easier, obviously, to mix this in than trying to make the gravy-like substance of the cream, Inulin, and BioGaia. And so now we're just mixing it up in this big bowl before we pour it into the individual jars in our Suteck Yogurt Maker. Poured the mixture now from the mixing bowl into the measuring cup. And you can see we've already filled up many of the jars. We're just going to fill up make sure the last two are similar in amounts to the ones that are already in the yogurt maker, and put them in the Suteck Yogurt Maker. And again, trying to keep things as sanitary as possible. You want to keep your lids, you don't want the tops touching the bottom, so you just keep those all down on the tops, and that way you keep things as sanitary as possible. And so we're just going to put the last two in the Suteck Yogurt Maker, and then we're going to go through a tutorial on the Suteck as we make this yogurt. Okay, so we've put all the yogurt into the yogurt maker. We're going to put the lid on and hit the function button, and the temperature light blinks. We're going to adjust that down to 107. Hit start. Now the time is blinking. We're going to adjust that up to 10 hours and hit start. And yogurt is making.